planning a UK bikepacking route has probably never been easier with all the data that is available online now, and with more and more people getting outside themselves and more data becoming available from the trails, the trail conditions, and also the trail types. The first thing I will be going over is the types of ways, and to do that we need to break it down to England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland, as each have their own set of rules which we will go over soon. But the different types of public rights of way in England, Wales and Northern Ireland are as follows. Footpaths. Footpaths are public rights of way often marked with a walk-in person that you are legally allowed to use while on foot or using mobility scooters or powered wheelchairs. Footpaths are often marked with a yellow arrow but often can vary from county to county. Bridleways. Bridleways are for use while either walking, cycling, horse riding and using mobility scooters or powered wheelchairs. These public rights of ways are often marked with a sign with a horse and often but not always use the colour blue. Restricted byways are public rights of way that you may use without a motor. A restricted byway is essentially an old road that is now used as a path for non-mechanical vehicles. They are often marked with a sign saying restricted byway, sometimes with a green colour. Byways, similar to restricted byways, however, is open to all traffic. However, the nature of a byway is that they are normally old, non-maintained roads, so are mostly used by walkers, cyclists and horse riders, but you might see the odd Land Rover or motorcyclist. Permissive footpath. A permissive footpath is not a legal right of way, however is a footpath that has been permitted by the landowner, which means you may use the path while on foot or while using a mobility scooter or powered wheelchairs. But the landowner has the right to withdraw this permission at any time. Permissive bridleway. The same as the permissive footpath, a permissive bridleway is a route through private land that the landowner has granted permission for use. You may use this while cycling, horse riding and walking, including mobility scooters or powered wheelchairs. The landowner also has the right to withdraw permission at any time. With both permissive footpaths and permissive bridleways, the path will often be closed for 1 day a year to protect the landowner against any future claims of a continuous public right of way. Open access land is a part of land you are free to roam. There is often gates on each side of this land showing that you are either entering or leaving this land. Often there will be a footpath or bridleway going through this land, but you do not have to stick to the footpath or bridleway. National cycle routes. The National Cycle Route from Sustrans is a walking, wheeling and cycling charity, and the routes are marked with a blue and red sign. These routes can vary from roads to shared paths to gravel paths. Some are traffic free and some are not. If they are on the road, they normally try to take you on the quieter back roads. As you can see, there are quite a few different types of public rights of way, and it can get a bit complicated. But if you are looking to make your own bikepacking route in England, Wales or Northern Ireland, then the types of public rights of way that you will want to be using are bridleways, restricted byways and byways. Permissive bridleways are okay to use, but if you are planning to share the route publicly, then it may be best to avoid them as they can be withdrawn at any time. Byways and restricted byways are often the best surfaces for bikepacking in my experience, as they tend to be wider and hold up better in the winter months. However, there is a lot less of them. Bridleways come in all different shapes and sizes. Some are wide, rocky, some are narrow and single track. Scotland, however, is a little different. The Land Reform Act of 2003 gives the public the right to be on or cross any land for recreational, educational and other named purposes. There may be circumstances where you get permission from the landowner, but providing you are considerate and respectful of the land you are traversing, you have the right to roam when walking, cycling or horse riding. There may be limited access in some of these areas, but local signs will instruct you. Access rights are also excluded from buildings or other structures or works, plants or fixed machinery such as farmyard buildings, sites or quarries. The enclosed space of ground and buildings immediately surrounding a dwelling, work, compounds, schools and land over which you may be required to pay an entrance fee, such as properties owned by the National Trust or Historic Scotland. Ultimately, this was created to give everyone the greater freedom to enjoy the outdoors and to clarify for the benefit of users, land managers and conservation what you can and cannot do, as well as where you can and cannot go. If you want to read up on more of this, I'll leave a link in the video description, but when it comes to bikepacking in Scotland, it does give you more freedom to explore and create a route within the terrain you prefer. So now you have an idea of the types of public rights of way in the UK and who and what can use each one. The next question is how to find them. The good news is there are many ways nowadays to find the trails, but the bad news is finding how good the terrain is on each trail can be a little trickier. To find where these public rights of way are though, here are some options you can try. The first thing you can do is search the local council website where you want to go bikepacking. If you search for the definitive map followed by the county, you should be able to find a map with all the different public rights of way from that council. The definitive map is the legal record for public rights of way. You can use these maps to find bridleways and byways, etc., off-road ways around England and Wales. Most councils nowadays have digitised these maps, so you can access them online. If, however, you find a definitive map is not available online, contacting the council directly may be required. In Scotland, there is no definitive map, however, that doesn't mean there is no known rights of way in Scotland, and you will often come across signs directing you along the Scottish rights of way. The charity Scottish Rights of Way and Access Society is the reason you will see them. Another option is OS Maps. Ordnance Survey maps are your next point of call for getting an idea of where these public rights of ways are. OS Maps receives data from the definitive maps, so are always going to be the most up to date. OS Maps can be used online or mobile devices or in paper format, and you can use OS Maps to create your own routes. However, to use OS Maps and get access to all the byways and bridleways, you will need to purchase a subscription, which is around £3 a month as I am making this. You can also purchase the paper maps, and some libraries have them also. It's one thing to know where all the trails and public rights of way are, but it's another thing being able to connect them and find the most suitable trails to ride along. Linking them together has got much easier with apps available now. When it comes to plotting a route together, you can of course just use your old paper maps, but there is a lot better way nowadays, and there are more than 3 apps, but I will go over 3 apps for plotting routes, one of which has already been mentioned. OS Maps does offer a route building tool which is easy enough to use. The route creating tool is free, but if you want to use it with the map that shows all the bridleways and byways, etc., then you will need to pay for the premium. The free version also doesn't allow you to use a snap to path feature, so makes the free tool not very useful, to be honest. However, with the premium version of OS Maps, it is a very good way to connect trails you want to ride. Ride GPS is another good option to use to build and plot your routes. However, unlike OS Maps, it doesn't get data from the definitive maps. It uses something called OpenStreetMaps. OpenStreetMaps is a map of the world created by people like you and me, and is free to use under an open license. However, because it is not using the definitive map data, it can and does sometimes mean routes and trails may be wrong, non-existent, and does mean you might find yourself not able to use a certain trail. You may be directed to use a footpath, for example, as the data a particular trail isn't always known by OpenStreetMap or Ride GPS. However, using Ride with GPS offers different kinds of benefits. One being you can create routes for free, and you can also download other people's routes for free. You are also able to easily link Ride with GPS to your GPS device, and streamlined with data that cyclists often like, or you can just use it on your phone. However, I don't typically use Ride with GPS, as I've always felt it's a little bit clunky, and typically I'll opt for another app. Komoot is another app quite similar to Ride with GPS in that it uses OpenStreetMaps, so it is also prone to the same issues. It does sometimes get it wrong. Komoot is free to use, but you can only use it for free in 2 of your chosen counties after signing up, which is great if you want to explore your local area. You currently have the option to buy the world map, which then gives you access to creating the route wherever you like, which is a one-off payment. They do also have a subscription service, which means you can break down longer routes into individual days. The world map option can be worth it, but the subscription might not be for most people. However, Komoot has a bit more of a social aspect to it, which users can submit highlights, which is mostly really useful for information that some people leave about the trail, and also the pictures of the trail, which can give you a little insight of a particular trail and if it might be a good trail that you might want to ride. You shouldn't rely on this alone, but it can be helpful. Komoot's routing tool is also very good and very intuitive, so it is a useful tool for plotting the route together. But it is also a good idea to also look and compare with the definitive maps to make sure you are using the bridleways. A little tip that I have found to give the best results for rideable trails on Komoot is to use the Enduro mountain bike option. The way Komoot categorizes trails with the data they have means Enduro mountain bike trails normally falls onto bridleways and forest tracks, whereas the mountain bike option uses single track options, which is more often than not a footpath in the UK and not a bridleway or a byway. And as footpaths, you're not really meant to cycle on in the UK, and often they're not really rideable. Fortunately, knowing exactly what each bridleway or byway conditions are going to be is where things get a little bit harder to manage. And if you are creating your own route, sometimes it can be a bit trial and error. But with the ever-changing conditions of the UK, byways do tend to hold up better and tend to be more consistent, but there's no guarantee. The issue here is that byways and restricted byways are a lot less common than bridleways. A lot of judging what is going to be suitable for the ride you want comes down to experience and local knowledge. Particular trail starts or ends at a road, Google Street View is also an option to get a little glimpse into what the trail might be like. Some bridleways just go through fields, some through woodlands, and some are narrow and some are wide. Combining Google Street View, Google Earth, Komoot highlights, definitive maps can give you an idea of what a trail may be like and make sure what the type of trail it is. You can also use the data from the likes of Strava to get an idea of how often trails are used, which can be a good indicator of how good it is to ride. And also, Trailforks sometimes has some useful information. As you can see, making a route can be complex and time consuming, but the good news is that there are many different types of routes for all level of abilities in the UK already plotted out, so you can leave all of that time consuming stuff to people like me and get out on your adventure. So let's go over where to get these routes and some routes that I recommend to start with. keepsmilingadventures.com. Okay, a bit of self-promotion here, I know, but if you have been following this channel for a while and maybe you have seen me take on a route that you particularly like the look of, then if you head over to my website, keepsmilingadventures.com, I have all the routes I have completed on this channel, some of which I have created myself and some of which I have not. But they are all available to download, either a direct GPX download that you can put straight onto your GPS device, or view and follow the route through Komoot. They are categorized into beginner routes, intermediate routes, and challenging routes, with a bit of information on the ride itself and how I found each route. Another great option is probably the biggest website and collection of routes, not just in the UK but worldwide, is Bikepacking.com. They have a lot of UK routes too. In my experience, the routes that I have completed from here tend to have a lot more grindy routes, often with lots of hiker bike. They tend to be scared of coming into any built up place, so you often need to come off course to find supplies. But there are lots of good routes on there and lots of information also. These routes just err on the side of a little bit more advanced typically, but again, it's a great place and a great resource. Another option for UK bikepacking routes is Cycling UK, a UK-based cycling charity that has over the years made some really popular bikepacking routes. A lot of the Cycling UK routes are a little on the easier side, so can be a good place to start. The Cycling UK website offers lots of information and tips and guides.